Hey, you, welcome back to Medium with the Mic. I'm Kari. Did you know that Father's Day and the summer solstice are falling on the exact same day this year? I definitely don't think the universe accidentally stacked one of the most sacred solar events of the year on top of the day we're designated to honor fathers and father figures. I think that's a message, a loud one. So let's talk about the sun, the sacred masculine, ancestors, and what it means when the longest day of the year asks us to look at the men who shaped us and the father energy that lives inside every single one of us. Let's start with the science. The summer solstice, which falls on June 20th or 21st most years in the northern hemisphere, is the moment when the Earth's axial tilt is most inclined toward the sun. The word solstice itself comes from the Latin sol, meaning sun, and sistere, meaning to stand still. The sun stands still. And for just a moment, it feels like time itself pauses. On the solstice, we experience the longest day and the shortest night of the year. The sun rises earlier and sets later than any other day. In some northern latitudes, it barely gets dark at all. All of that light, all of that solar energy concentrated into one extraordinary day. Now, from a purely astronomical standpoint, what's happening is this: the Earth's axis is tilted at about 23.5 degrees. And as we orbit the sun, that tilt means different parts of the planet receive different amounts of solar energy at different times of year. At the summer solstice, the northern hemisphere is tilted maximally toward the sun. We are as close to the sun's direct rays as we can get. This is peak solar energy, peak light, peak vitality. And here's something that's fascinating from a biological standpoint. Our bodies know this. Humans have been biologically attuned to solar cycles for hundreds of thousands of years. Sunlight regulates your circadian rhythms through a hormone called melatonin. More light, less melatonin. More energy and alertness. Sunlight triggers the production of serotonin, our feel good neurotransmitter. Vitamin D synthesis, which affects everything from immune function to mood to bone health, is directly driven by sun exposure. On the solstice, our bodies are literally receiving the maximum possible dose of all of that. Ancient people didn't need science to tell them that this day was powerful. They felt it in their bones. And there's more. Research in the field of chronobiology, the study of biological time, has found that solar and lunar cycles have measurable effects on human physiology and behavior. The solstice isn't just a poetic moment, it is a real, measurable biological event that our bodies and nervous systems respond to, whether we're conscious of it or not. Now, let's talk about humanity and how it's honored this day, because the breadth of it is staggering. Stonehenge, let's just start there because it's one most people know. Those massive stones in England, arranged with extraordinary precision, align perfectly with the sunrise on summer solstice. We're talking about a structure that was built somewhere between 3000 and 2000 BCE. So we're looking at roughly 5,000 years ago. And the primary astronomical alignment is to the solstice sunrise. The builders of Stonehenge, whoever they were, considered this moment significant enough to orient their most monumental construction around it. The ancient Egyptians connected the summer solstice to the rising of Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, which they associated with the goddess Isis and which heralded the annual flooding of the Nile that brought life to their land. The solstice was the beginning of their new year, the moment when the life force of the cosmos was at its most potent. In Scandinavia, midsummer, celebrated right around the solstice, was one of the most important festivals of the year. Bonfires were lit on hilltops, flowers were worn in the hair, and the night was considered thin, the boundary between the human world and the spirit world at its most permeable. People would stay up through the brief northern night, dancing and celebrating, because to sleep on midsummer was to miss something sacred. The ancient Romans celebrated Litha and Vestalia around this time as well, honoring the sacred flame tended by the Vestal Virgins, the fire that represented the eternal hearth of Rome. The Celts celebrated Alban Hethan, the light of the shore, a high festival marking the Sun King at the peak of his power. Native American traditions across many nations held summer solstice ceremonies, sun dances, fire ceremonies, gratitude rituals for the abundance of the growing season. And here's a thread that runs through nearly all of these traditions. The summer solstice was associated with masculine solar energy. The sun, in most ancient traditions, was understood as a masculine force, radiant, outward, active, generative, protective. The summer solstice was the apex of that force, the Sun King at the height of his reign. Which brings us beautifully to Father's Day. I want to talk about the sacred masculine on this particular day when the sun is at its maximum power and we're honoring fathers. It's the perfect time. The sacred masculine is not about gender in the biological or social sense. Every human being, regardless of how they identify, carries both masculine and feminine energetic principles within them. The sacred masculine is an energetic quality. It is the principle of outward movement, of protection, of structure and boundaries that create safety for growth, of taking action from a place of integrity, of providing, not just materially, but energetically, a container within which life can flourish. The sun is the ultimate symbol of this. Think about it. The sun doesn't hold back its light, it radiates completely, unconditionally, every single day. It provides warmth and energy that makes all life possible. It creates the conditions for growth without controlling what grows. That is sacred masculine energy at its finest. And in the father archetype, the healthy, sacred father archetype, we see the same quality. The father who shows up, who creates safety, who says, I've got you. You can take risks because I'm here. Who leads not through domination, but through presence and integrity. Who radiates love the way the sun radiates light, fully, without condition, without keeping score. Now, not everyone had that father. Not everyone was held by that energy in their upbringing. For some of us, Father's Day is complicated, painful, heavy with grief or anger or longing for something that wasn't there. And I don't want to gloss over that. I want to hold space for it. I lost my father when I was 15, and it was really hard. That is a really important time for a girl to lose a male role model. But here's what I know from my work as a medium. Even when the human father falls short, and they do, they're human, they have their own wounds, their own story, their own soul contract. The archetypal father energy is always available to you, always. You can access it through your ancestors, through your guides, through the divine masculine in whatever form resonates with you spiritually. That energy exists and it can be called in. And on this day, when the sun is standing at its full height and pouring out every bit of its light, I want to invite you to let it in. Let the sun be your father energy today, if nothing else. Let it warm you. Let it remind you that you're worthy of that unconditional light. Let's talk about lineage for a minute. Every father is also a son. Every grandfather was once a child. When we honor our fathers, we are reaching back into a long, long chain of men who carried their own wounds, their own wisdom, their own questions that they came here to answer. And all of that, all of those experiences, all of those souls lives in you. From a scientific standpoint, we now know through the field of epigenetics that our ancestors' experiences literally shaped our biology. Epigenetics is the study of heritable changes in gene expression that don't involve changes to the DNA sequence itself. In other words, the way your genes are expressed can be influenced by what your ancestors experienced. Studies on the descendants of Holocaust survivors, of famine survivors, of people who experienced severe trauma have found measurable epigenetic markers that suggest the emotional and physical experiences of our ancestors are passed down through our biology. You carry your grandfather's resilience in your cells. You carry your great grandmother's grief in your nervous system. You carry the courage and the fear and the love and the longing in every person in your lineage, encoded not just energetically, but biologically. That is not a small thing. That is profound. From a spiritual standpoint, our ancestors are not gone. They are part of the web of consciousness that connects all souls. And in my experience as a medium, the father figures and grandfather figures who show up in readings are often the ones with the most to say, the most to apologize for, the most to offer, the most pride to express for the person sitting in front of me who maybe never heard those words when they were alive. On this day, Father's Day, summer solstice, the day when the veil between worlds is considered particularly thin in many traditions, I want to invite you to reach back. Light a candle for your father, your grandfather, the men in your lineage who came before. You don't have to have had a perfect relationship with them. You don't have to have loved them uncomplicated. Just acknowledge them because they are part of you. And acknowledging them is, in some way, acknowledging yourself. Here's something interesting about the summer solstice that most people don't sit with very long. It's both a peak and a turning point. The solstice is the longest day, but it is also the day after which the days begin getting shorter again. The sun has reached its maximum power. And from this point forward, we begin the slow journey toward the dark half of the year. It's not a decline exactly, it's more like a completion, the fullness that naturally turns toward inward movement. In many ancient traditions, the solstice was understood as a death and a rebirth moment for the Sun King. He reaches his peak, he stands in full glory, and then he begins to yield, not in defeat, but in wisdom, knowing that the cycle requires both the outward and the inward, both the light and the dark. I think there's a really powerful reflection here for fathers and for the masculine principle in all of us. The solstice asks, where have you reached your peak? Where is it time to let something complete and begin to turn inward? Where is the sacred masculine in your life being called to yield, not out of weakness, but out of that deep wisdom that knows the cycle? For some of you, that might be about your relationship with your own father, a completion, a forgiveness, an acknowledgement that a chapter is ending. For some, it might be about your own journey as a father or a provider or a protector. What have you built? What are you most proud of? What is ready to transform into something new? The solstice doesn't just ask you to celebrate the light. It asks you to be willing to stand in the fullness of where you are and then wisely, consciously begin to turn. Let me give you some really practical ways to honor both of these energies today. Whether you're celebrating a living father, grieving one who has passed, doing this solo, or simply wanting to mark this extraordinary convergence. First, a sunrise greeting. If you can, get up and watch the sunrise on the solstice. This is the longest day, which means the sun rises earlier than any other day. Go outside, face east, and just be present for it. You don't need any formal ritual, just witness it. Feel the light on your face. If you want to speak something out loud, gratitude, an intention, an acknowledgement of the fathers and ancestors in your lineage, do it. The sunrise on the solstice is one of the most charged moments of the natural year. Just show up for it. Second, a sun meditation. Sit in sunlight, even for just 10 to 15 minutes, and consciously receive it. Not scrolling your phone, not half present. Actually sit in the sun and breathe it in. Visualize the light entering through the top of your head and filling your entire body. If you're working on opening or strengthening your solar plexus chakra, your center for personal power and confidence, the solstice sun is extraordinarily supportive energy for that work. Third, ancestor acknowledgement. Light a candle, gold or yellow if you have one, for the sun, and take a few minutes to consciously acknowledge the fathers and male ancestors in your lineage. You can do this silently or out loud. You can say their names if you know them. You can simply say, I acknowledge all of the men who came before me in my lineage. I honor the experiences they carried. I receive the wisdom and the strength they have for me. I release what was not mine to carry forward. That last part is important. You are not obligated to carry every wound in your lineage. You can honor your ancestors while consciously choosing what you receive from them and what you compassionately release. Try journaling prompts. Here are some questions worth sitting with today. What did my father or father figures teach me, both directly and indirectly, about what I deserve? Where do I see my father's patterns showing up in my own life, and which of those patterns am I ready to transform? What would I want to say to my father, living or past, if I knew he could fully receive it? What does sacred masculine energy mean to me, and where in my life am I calling more of it in? On this, the longest day of the year, what is at its fullest in my life right now? And what is ready to begin its turn towards something new? Lastly, fire. If you can safely build a fire or even light a significant number of candles tonight, do it. Fire has been central to solstice celebrations across cultures for thousands of years. There's something in us that responds to fire on this night. Let it burn. Sit with it. If there's something you want to release, like a wound, a resentment, a story about your father or yourself, write it on a piece of paper and burn it. Let the solstice fire do its work. And I can't do this episode without speaking directly to those of you who are missing your dads today. Grief on Father's Day is real, and it doesn't get talked about enough. Whether your father recently passed or if he passed decades ago, whether your relationship was close or complicated or both, this day can carry a weight that sneaks up on you. Here's what I know from my work. The people we love don't stop loving us after they leave this physical existence. The fathers, grandfathers, father figures who've crossed over are still connected to you. They can perceive your life. They know when you're struggling and when you're thriving. They're not absent. They are just present in a different way than what we're used to. On the solstice, when the energy is high and the light is at its peak, and the veil is considered thin, your father is especially reachable if you want to reach. You don't need a medium to do that, though I'm obviously happy to help you. You can simply sit quietly, light a candle, say his name, and open your heart to whatever comes. It may be a feeling of warmth, a breeze on your cheek, a memory that rises unexpectedly, a song that plays on the radio that was his favorite. It could be a cardinal at the window, a smell that has no source. Pay attention today. The ones we love who have crossed, find ways to reach back. So here we are, Father's Day, summer solstice, the sun at its absolute peak, pouring out every bit of its light, standing still for just a moment before beginning its slow, wise turn toward the dark half of the year. What a day to be alive. I hope this episode gave you something to think about, something to feel into, or something to take outside with you today. Whether you're celebrating a dad, missing one, doing your own solstice ritual, or just sitting in the sun wondering what it all means, you're in good company. Honor the light in yourself today. You carry it. You always have. Thank you so much for being here with me. Share this episode with someone who needs it. And find me at sacredwhispers1111.com for more. And if this resonated with you, leave me a thumbs up, subscribe, or leave a comment. It genuinely helps more people find their way here. Until next time, trust what you feel, honor what you know, and remember, you are so much more than you think you are. Happy solstice, happy Father's Day, and keep listening to those whispers of wisdom.